In this presentation, we will see some cases of improvement of sustainability in pilot winery, which use the Eco-prowine approach, and specifically some examples of Italian wineries. I am Gianni Trioli for Vinideo, one of the partners of the Eco-prowine project, and we were coaching the Italian pilot wineries during the program. This first evaluation, which is here shown in the graph, has been done on the base of the data gathered and collected for the period in May 2011 and April 2012. 22 pilot farms were participating in the Eco-prowine project. 9 of them only had vineyards, so were kind of typical, but they were able anyhow to get some information how to improve. And 13 were complete process, so vineyard, grape production, winemaking, and packaging and marketing. The first data which came out was that the average of Italy in terms of global index obtained as it has been explained in other cases, was kind of lower compared to the average of Europe, so all the wineries of the pilot group of the project, and that was a good performance of the Italian group. 19 actually of them obtained the label, and only 3 were above the threshold that they did not obtain the right of use with the label, the logo of Eco-prowine actually in their communication. I want to show you some specific cases. We will take 2 wineries which obtain the right of using the logo, so specifically Winery U and Winery Y, which, as you can see, they are not the lowest. They are kind of high, above among those who obtained the label. And then the other 2 are winery P and Q, and these were 2 wineries who did not obtain the label in the first evaluation. So winery U is a rather small, 10 hectares of vineyard, 35,000 bottles produced, 330 hectoliters of wine. They also sell wine on bulk to private consumer. So they obtain the label, and the analysis of their performance in terms of the environmental impact is shown here in this graph. And it is very easy to identify by this way which are the critical points. So you see, fuel was the first big issue, with the consumption per liter wine, which was much higher than the average. Glass bottles, core closure, and not so bad, actually good for boxes. So in terms of packaging material, were glass bottles and core closures. So the priorities which were identified during coaching was to reduce transfers among the distant property lots, because these 10 hectares are not a unique block. This property has a different lot distant one from the other, and if the work is not well organized, the transfer between vineyard lots may become a big waste of time and, of course, of fuel. Merge operations in a single passage, like, for example, trimming and some treatment for pest management, reduce glass bottles, and reduce core closure. So these were the 4, let's say, engagement of the winery coming out from this analysis. What happened when we do again the same evaluation 3 years later, so in 2015, and these are the gray histograms. So good improvement here due to a better organization of vineyard work. As we were supposing, there was a big waste, also of time, so human work. And that was together with the merging of the treatment, was enough to reduce by 36% the fuel consumption, so we are still above the European average, but you see a big improvement compared to the other. Copper use was not reducing so much. These wineries presently converting to organic, so they are using copper, and one of the reasons is also that 2015 was a rainy year, so they had to protect very much the vineyard. Glass bottles was not easy because the winery is placed in a remote area, and the supplier of the area, they don't have a large choice of glass bottles type. So they move from one type to the other by reducing by 8% the environmental impact, but they were not able to get below the European average. Anyhow, globally, the improvement was 15% in terms of global index compared to 2012. So there is some good improvement, which is keeping for sure the winery in between those who can use the label. Pilot Winery Y also had the label in 2012, is even smaller, 5 hectares, 25,000 bottles of wine. Also, you can see there was some purchase of grape and wine at the time, and the analysis was giving this figure. So somehow more consumption in fuel, but mostly there is the packaging material who was giving a rather high environmental impact, both in terms of glass bottles, cork closure, and boxes. So these were, the packaging material was the key point for this improvement. We have to notice that this winery is totally independent in terms of energy, electricity, because they have a very wide photovoltaic plant. 3 years later, they what was a very particular year. In 2015, during the vegetative seasons, between April and October, they were obliged to treat 24 times, which is well above the average number of treatment. For instance, 2012 was 17. So no actual improvement or some decrease in terms of performance, environmental performance in terms of fuel and copper, but they were able to reduce somehow the glass bottles and the cork closures. They were not able to do more than that because they are using 6 bottle boxes, and they are kept horizontal. So they need, both from the box side and from the bottle side, some good mechanical strength to be able to pellet the boxes together. So they were very prudent in reducing the glass bottle weight, for example, because they are very scared. They are very scared about having commercial problems, also because they export quite a lot. So at the end of the story, you see the further improvement was not that big, was minus 3% compared to 2012. And this because of the year, because of the specific situation. Winery P was not having the right of using the Eco-prowine logo for different reasons. The main was that almost half of the 19.5 hectares of vineyard were newly planted, so not in production or very small production. So they had to treat, they had to get into the vineyard anyhow. They had to spray pesticide, they had to switch on all the machinery in the winery and make all the operation, but very low yield, very low quantity at the end. So that makes the quantity per liter as is in this graph much higher than the average. But anyhow, that's the general comment. Specifically, this graph is showing very well that boxes were a big issue, closure and glass bottles, as usual we have seen, copper, electricity and fueling and gas oil. So of course, packaging material to be reduced in terms of improvement, priority, reduce energy use and reduce copper in the vineyard. It worked. Minus 26% in the global index in the 3 years, due to, of course, the increase of production, both in the vineyard and consequently into the winery, which give a much better performance per liter in terms of energy consumption, so minus 24, minus 33, respectively. Also, they changed the glass bottles, having a less heavy type. And in terms of boxes, it was realized that the very high number in 2012 was due to a purchase of a number of boxes much higher compared to the production of the year. So it was kind of stock of boxes. So they didn't change the type, but what has been bought in 2015 was more online with the average of Europe. So same vineyard surface in 2015, but 3 times more production and 2 times more bottles, and of course some of the production which was sold in bulk because the commercial network is not still so developed. Last winery is also very interesting, is again a very small one. We had a lot of pilot wineries, very motivated, but they're small too. Again, with some newly planted vineyards, so the same problem we can see in terms of fueling and energy in total. Very high weight of cork, which for some reason, and copper and pesticide, which were above the average. So after 3 years, there was a very good improvement due to they introduced in their system a DSS, so a decision support system, which helped us to reduce very much the number of treatment without getting more risk of moldiness, and at the same time they increased the yield. But the most significant probably was the introduction of photovoltaic plant, which reduced by 70% almost the electricity consumption from the net. Copper also were very much less used because of the improved defense strategy, and they changed the cork type. Instead of a natural cork for all the bottles, they for certain type of product in their range, they were used what is called a technical cork, which is lighter. So minus 32% was the effect in terms of global index, and that was a very good success. And this winery is now getting the evaluation the second time, and will probably get the right of using the logo in the next time. So these are the 4 cases I wanted to explain to you. As a general comment for the other wineries, I should say that 2015 was not an easy year, because in many regions of Italy was very rainy weather, the climate was very bad, and many wineries were really forced to treat a lot in the vineyard, having anyhow a low yield in the winery. So was a year where the environmental impact per liter in general was higher than in a normal year. Nevertheless, most of the winery has an improvement, sometimes very little, sometimes very significant, as we have seen, but most of them were able to decrease the global index of environmental impact.